Welcome to the Biz and Tech Podcast. We are 5 years running, 50 episodes on the books, and today a special episode with Jay Revell of Revell Media, Chief Storyteller and Presidente, and one of the only people on the planet to host this show besides me. So it's awesome to have you here, man. Good to see you. What's up?
Good to see you, man. Glad to be back. Life's good. How about you?
We are rocking along, you
That's
know.
good.
As you're watching this, we may or may not have had a hurricane event.
Yeah.
So hopefully that is in the rearview mirror and everybody's safe and sound. But for today's purposes, Jay, let's talk about you, man. You launched your own business in recent years.
Yeah.
I know your background. To share it with the team and the audience here so everybody knows your story. But where did that idea come from?
Sure.
How long did it take to get to fruition? And let's hear it.
Well, short answer is it took a lifetime to get there.
That was always the dream. I want my own business.
Yeah, something like that. I actually started the company Revell Media 4 years ago on October 1. So we're 4 years in, and
2020.
Yeah, yeah, right.
That's a great year for anything. Wow.
Yeah, we like chaos. No, yeah, it was, the world was changing rapidly in the middle of COVID and the pandemic, and saw some opportunities on the board, and I had always dreamed of owning my own business, had always dreamed of being in the storytelling business. Went through a lot of, iterations and evolutions to get there in my career. And, what's the old saying? Never let a good, disaster go to waste, right? I mean, it was a tumultuous time in the world, but there were a lot of people who needed help communicating all at once, right? And so I was like, if you're ever going to do this, now is the time to make a change and try it, right? And so we leaned in and did it. And, my background history is kind of interesting. I grew up in Havana, the booming metropolis of Havana, about 12, 15 miles north of Tallahassee. Tallahassee was, our connections to Tallahassee were going to the Tallahassee Mall and the AMC Theater and, Gaffer's and Morrison's Cafeteria and stuff like that, right? We didn't.
Oh, I miss Morrison's.
Oh, it was great. The Jell-O.
Cream
right?
corn, man.
Yeah. We came over here to eat and hang out on occasion, but for the most part, our lives were in Gadsden County. Most of my family were Gator fans. Your guys. I grew up, had a lot of orange and blue in the closet. Wanted to go to school down there, and I didn't get in. I ended up getting waitlisted or whatever, and I got this, nice little rejection letter from Gainesville, and I got this big, beautiful garnet and gold welcoming hug of a package in the mail when I was 18 in high school, and I was like, well, let's at least go check this out. I mean, this is a good school, right? And so I come over, take a look at the campus. My mind was blown instantly. I mean, my high school, I had 22 kids in my graduating class. So I'm like, there's a lot of opportunity here. So I told myself, like, let's do two things. Let's get to know Tallahassee and Florida State University better than anybody. Really challenge yourself. And if you don't like it, you can always leave, transfer, go back in the back door or something at Gainesville or wherever. And I just really leaned into that opportunity, and a funny thing happened. I fell in love with Tallahassee. I fell in love with Florida State. Became a huge Noel fan. Made great lifelong friends. Met my wife freshman year. We didn't get back together for a while, but met her then. It was an incredible experience. One of the best things that happened to me on that road is I got a call. I was a Sigma Chi at Florida State. I get a call from an alum who was running for local office. His name's John Daly. And he says, I need some guys that can help bartend my fundraisers. And I was a freshly minted political science major. And I was like, well, that sounds like a great job for me. And so I became his sort of chief bartender and turned that into an internship.
It's good to have chief in the title.
Yeah, right? Yeah, which was
nice.
consistent. And I became his intern, and we really hit it off and were able to get some things done together. And the day after I graduated, I went to work full-time running his office on the Leon County Commission. And I did that for a better part of 5 years. Went back to grad school. Great program at Florida State called, we call it the MAP program. It's the Masters of Applied American Politics and Policy.
Okay.
And I kind of went in with this, political angle. But what I gravitated to was all of the communication side of that and the storytelling politically. And I found that, so much of what we were learning, even though it had a political lens, was applicable to the broader world of communication. So I really got interested in that. I actually wrote my thesis at the time on an organization in Tallahassee called the Tallahassee Downtown Improvement Authority. And they were hiring for a new executive director at the time. I sent that paper to everyone on the board, and they hired me. And that became our strategic plan.
That's huge.
And, yeah, it was pretty cool. So I got to be the executive director of the Downtown Improvement Authority.
That is an organic opportunity
there. It was.
If there
ever
was one.
It was really cool. And, basically what I wrote in that plan and what we ended up doing, I said, the DIA, as it's commonly called, couldn't be everything to everybody. We need to figure out what we could be best at. And we figured that we could become best at telling the story of our downtown. We could be basically the marketing and advocacy arm on behalf of those who are fully invested in our downtown. And got to know so many amazing people. I think of like Andy Reese. I used to go sit there in the corner, booth with Andy and talk about the history of downtown all the time, and all kinds of other folks who were just all bought in. We ran the downtown get downs and the Saturday market. We started the free concerts down at Cascades Park when that opened up.
Nice.
Just had a blast doing it. It was a lot of fun. I also managed in that time to get myself on the board of directors at the Chamber of Commerce. And I always joke that I ran my mouth so much in those meetings that they hired me to come help them out. So I got to be vice president over there, handling a lot of their public affairs.
Nice.
Stayed there
that's
for,
when our paths.
That's when our paths really
crossed.
started crossing.
Right.
And same thing, telling stories of business owners, telling the story of our business community. Had a blast doing that. Had a great, mentor again in Sue Dick. Got to learn, a lot from her and so many of our business owners. I mean, my favorite part about that job was every single day I was in someone else's business. And I would just say, tell me the story of this, just like we're doing now. And you just learn. I almost got like a crash course MBA just from talking to so many different successful and some unsuccessful business owners. And as I'm doing it. You
could learn a lot from both,
yeah,
can't
right?
you?
Yeah, and as I'm doing it, I'm like, I think I want to be a business owner. It's a challenge, but man, what a cool thing to, literally put your name on the door, hang your shingle, as, Ron Sachs always would talk about with me. And I just had this wealth of mentors and people who were encouraging and supportive, and I'd ask them questions, and finally, you work up the gumption and form an LLC, put a sign on a door somewhere, and you take off. And I had the great pleasure, too, my first couple years in business, my office was right next door to Gary Yordan's. And so, we got in all kinds of mischief up there, as you can imagine. And Gary was a great mentor, too, and taught me kind of how to, be in the business of storytelling. And I set out.
He picked my brain one afternoon.
Oh, yeah.
Sitting on that leather couch.
Yeah,
it's a great office.
I've been there many times. Yeah.
And little did I know he was secretly concocting a Blake Dowling roast column. Blake Dowling, the robot, AI. It was pretty damn funny.
Good.
Nice
it
job,
was really
Gary.
Funny. But, so that was a cool experience. And while I was building the business, I wrote a pretty simple mission statement. And it was for our company to become synonymous with corporate storytelling in Florida's capital region. And that's the path we've been on the last 4 years, and we've grown a lot. I've now got 4 employees. I got an amazing team of people that, keep me out of trouble, and we've got a really wonderful roster of clients of all kinds of different industries, and we get to tell a lot of stories and have fun doing it. So that's kind of how we got here in a hurry, right?
That's a hell of a story, and some great characters from our community in there, and those decision points and those crossroads. Reminds me of my own journey, especially the collegiate one that you went through. I was going to Alabama my whole life. That's where my family went. Both my granddads went there. I was going there, and then I visited UF, and I was like, why am I going to Tuscaloosa again?
Right.
When it becomes real, you got to follow your heart.
Exactly.
That's great. And the John Daly story especially. I don't think I knew the chief bartender role as your starting point there with his work. Awesome. All right, so if you had to pick a favorite project, I know you've had a lot under the Revell umbrella, Revell Media, I mean. What's your favorite?
Other than professionally distanced, the book we got
That
to
can
do
be your
together.
favorite if you want. I didn't know if the one we're looking at.
No, I was gonna, this one is my favorite to date.
And it's called Here is Tallahassee,
It's
correct?
called Here is Tallahassee. We've been working on this book for the last 2 years. Myself, Eric Martin, who is the chief photographer for this project.
Okay.
If you don't know Eric, I would highly encourage you to go follow his work. He is worth the follow on Instagram or whatever social media channel you prefer. But he is a brilliant photographer, an incredible talent. I mean, his work has been featured in the New York Times, Bitter Southerner, Flamingo Magazine, Tallahassee Magazine, all these local outlets, of course, but more and more national outlets. I'll tell you the story of how I found him in a second, but our other partner is Serena Moyle.
Okay.
If you know Serena, she is a wonderful lover of Tallahassee. She's worked on a number of book projects related to our community over the years, and the three of us got together with an idea and have been chasing it, and now it's coming to fruition. And I was in talking about the Chamber of Commerce. We took a chamber trip. We take these gaggle trips every so often to different cities and learn about places.
I joined the Greenville mission.
Yeah, that was a great one.
That was a great one. Beautiful community up there.
Yeah, wonderful city, incredible place. So right before that one, we went to Nashville.
Nice.
And while we were in Nashville, I was in a bookstore, and I saw this book. It's called Nashville, and it was Images from the New American South was the subtitle for that. And I picked it up, and I'm like, man, this is really cool. I like how they've presented this sort of, modern story of who Nashville was, is, and is becoming. And I kind of just filed that away. I'm like, that'd be pretty neat to do something like that for Tallahassee when we turn 200 years old in a few years down the road, right? This is 6 years ago. And fast forward one night, I'm sitting there on the couch, and I'm flipping through Instagram, and I see this photo from this guy, Eric Martin. And it's a picture of the Whataburger in Midtown. And this is like artwork. I mean, I'm like, whoa, this stopped me in my tracks. I'm like, this is gorgeous. Who is this? So I start going down the rabbit hole, and I'm looking at all his stuff. And it occurs to me that he is spending a lot of time on foot, walking around in many of the places that I've spent a lot of time in Tallahassee. He's familiar with a lot of the sort of hidden jewels all over our community that a lot of people kind of, I think, gloss over and don't necessarily recognize for their wonder. And
like the Leon Pub?
Yeah, exactly.
I was staring at it the other day when I drove by our new office.
Place,
wow, this place is so consistent.
That's a great word for it. But there's a lot of places like that. And Eric is a documentarian of those truths, I would say. Mm-hmm. So I reach out to Eric. I'm like, hey, let's get coffee sometime. I'd love to pick your brain. And as I'm talking to him over coffee, I kind of pitch this idea. I'm like, hey, I've been wanting to do a book. I want to do 200 images exactly of modern Tallahassee celebrating who we are when we turn 200 years old. And hopefully it becomes something that is treasured, and 50 years from now, 100 years from now, people look back and go, wow, look, that's what Tallahassee was like. It's a time capsule almost, right? And so he loves the idea. Serena and I had talked about it before. We all kind of get together in the room. And probably, again, over the course of 2 years, and I don't know how many dozens of meetings at my office, we went through probably a few thousand of Eric's images. And the result of that is this book, Here is Tallahassee. And we did a really cool partnership with Hearth and Soul. So they're our exclusive retail provider on this book, at least, for the first run, which we produced 1,500 copies. They'll be here within a few weeks.
They have an amazing storefront.
Oh,
at
beautiful.
Their various places.
Gorgeous place, right? Great, wonderful place to shop.
Susie's an awesome community
she
citizen.
is, and a great entrepreneur, and she really embraced the concept and the idea and worked with us on the design. And my friend, I need to shout out Cuneo Creative. Al and George Cuneo helped us lay out all the pages. Serena and I wrote every caption in the book. There's a caption on every single photo.
That's
Some
cool.
of them kind of, fun and pithy, and we have a little fun with ourselves on that. And
so you can pick it up there as well as online?
Yeah, so you can actually go right now. We launched the pre-orders for the book in August at the Chamber Conference. And we've already sold out, by the way. So we did 1,500 copies in this first run.
Wow.
And we've sold a fifth of them already, and no one's actually seen the book. So they're moving fast, and if you're looking for, corporate gifts or holiday presents or anything like that, this is a perfect one. And you ought to get it quick because they're moving fast.
I'm all about the easy Christmas
That's
gifts.
exactly right.
Everyone at the office, guess what you're getting?
Yeah, here's Tallahassee, right?
Or another copy of Professionally Distanced.
Yeah, for the third year in a row.
The gift that keeps on giving.
But this has been such a special project because it has, made all three of us, I think, fall more in love with Tallahassee.
That's cool.
Tallahassee's not a perfect place. I mean, we all wrote an essay at the beginning of the book, and the first line in mine is, Tallahassee is not a love at first sight city. I mean, how many stories have you heard from people that said, well, I thought I'd be here for 6 months. I thought I'd be here for a year. I thought I'd just be here for a little bit. I was in transition.
Was 3 years,
right,
I think.
Yeah.
I'll work here for 3 years.
Yeah. And then 25 years and a few kids or whatever later, right, you're in love with Tallahassee. And it grows on you over time. And I think that the reason that is that, the more you kind of get off the beaten path, you get out of your daily routine and you go and walk one of these 700 miles of trails, or you go into the Leon pub, or you go into wherever, these amazing little places, and you're like, this is pretty cool. And these people here are really special.
If you've ever seen someone's eyes light up, no matter what triggers it, I remember I met someone from Australia on a cruise and invited them to come to Tallahassee for a couple days. This is years and years ago.
That's cool.
And she and I are driving into town up from Thomasville, headed in, taking the back roads through Albany to get down here.
Yeah.
And just watching her face as she looked around, just like, it's unbelievable here. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was a British voice or
That's
Australian, but it's close.
Yeah. In the ballpark.
And I'm like, really? It's one of those things you don't really look at when you drive up and down Thomasville Road 100,000 times. But it's like, it is.
It's pretty.
It is striking.
Well, I mean, the probably most popular collection of Eric's work is what he's done shooting our canopy roads over the years. And if you've ever been in the car with someone who's experiencing that for the first time, it's pretty magical because they're like, "What? Wow, this! I've never seen anything like
Miller's
this before."
Landing Road. Wow, yeah,
there's
you're right.
Dozens of them, and so I mean that's what's on the cover of the book because, it's so interesting. This shot that's on the cover is literally on Miccosukee Road, and you're I don't know, a mile from downtown Tallahassee. It's just a unique place, and we have unique people and so many unique stories, and we wanted to capture all that and do it again in a way that was not we don't need another history book, right? We've that's been done. We wanted something that captured, again, this moment in time, who we were when we turned 200 years old. And it's amazing, too, to see how fast Tallahassee continues to change. I mean, there are images in this book that were taken within the last 2 years of places that are gone. Bradfield Blues Club,
right?
Waterworks, Midtown. There's a number of places like that in the book where you see it and you go, oh man, yeah, that we've already missed that. So it's interesting. It captures this evolution and it sort of poises this question of, well, what will we look like? Where will we go? What does the future hold? And you've got a chance to shape it. So we're proud of it.
Awesome, man. Yeah. So other projects, we've both mentioned Professionally Distanced. Got to give a shout out to you for that. So your first year, I guess we were a first-year client.
Yeah.
We're having coffee,
mm-hmm.
and you suggest the idea of putting a book together.
That's
and I laugh, and I say, no, thank you. We just led the business through 2020 next. And, we always prided ourselves with creative marketing, which I do a lot of that thought and those projects. And the chamber conference is always a good launching point because we'll make swag like Speedy the Sloth and make a video or something like that. So I was looking for just a little idea, and you really blew the doors off that because we ran with it.
Yeah.
We took the book idea and we launched it at the chamber conference, and it still remains available at quality retailers online. Right. But what an amazing idea, and pushing me to actually do it. I really can't thank you enough because, we do still give away copies. We've got the Goodwill Golf Tournament coming up.
Yeah.
They got 125 copies for their guests because it's a diary, a few years later, it's a diary of the pandemic.
Exactly.
There's not anyone that can't relate to it. We might not all have led a business through it, but we worked at one, or we managed a home, or we sat around and didn't do anything. Whatever it is that you did, we all did it together.
Yeah.
And looking back on it, I find myself hearing from people who enjoyed that project all the time. So thank you for that idea.
Yeah, you're welcome. I mean,
All
it's
right,
a hell of a business card,
It really is.
Yeah.
So random question. So
Sure.
you get to have a cocktail with anyone on Earth, with the caveat that Ozzy Osbourne's in the room too, just because he's Aussie.
Right, yeah. Who doesn't want that?
So
Yeah.
Jay Revell, Ozzy Osbourne, and who's your third?
I think I'm going with Arnold Palmer, right? So you got to have somebody that's a great storyteller, which he was, and I'm assuming we can resurrect people in this conversation.
We can do whatever we want.
So obviously, golf's a big part of my life, and someone who transcended the world of golf and became a international brand himself. And really launched a lot of what we think of as a modern sports celebrity. And again, I cannot imagine the multitudes of stories someone like that has. Life on the road. He was a pilot, just a really interesting guy. And, of course, him and Ozzy would be pretty interesting together, right?
Absolutely. That's a great one. Well, let's
Yeah.
parlay that into sports.
Sure.
What's your favorite sporting event you've ever been to?
I've been to the Masters a couple times. Most recently, I went in 2023 and took my brother on his first trip. And that was a pretty fascinating experience. I wrote a column about that in the
You guys got lost,
Yeah, we
correct?
did. Yeah, we got lost
read
right
it.
in the
That
gate.
was a great
Yeah.
read.
It was pretty entertaining. We were like literally walking through security together. And if you've never been to the Masters, right, it is the most well-executed gathering of human beings on the planet. Everything is so well done. Nothing is out of place. If you ever plan an event, you go, your jaws on the ground because they've literally thought of everything.
It's almost like people don't even bump into you.
No,
it's the most respectful gathering.
100%.
I went in one of the Tiger years,
Yeah.
99 and 2000. It's been a few years now, but it still sticks with me. Amazing.
I mean, they have security. The Pinkertons aren't everything around, but they don't really need it because everyone's so scared that they'll get banned for life. If they take a step out
That's
of line.
good perspective.
It is.
Maintain calm.
Yeah, everyone abides by the rules. The other thing that's amazing about it is there's no cell phones. It's like the last place on earth where there's no phones. I mean, they are super strict, no phones. So you walk in there and you just have this this anxiety of the world is lifted off of you. And if you tell someone like, hey, I'm on vacation, you get an out of office email, they still kind of half expect you to look at it and respond. You tell someone you're at the Masters, they go, have a wonderful time. I won't bother you. You know what I mean? It's like the whole world gets it. So all of that sets up our story, which is we come walking in the gate together, and we're all excited, can't wait. It's my second or third time, his first. And my brother and I are polar opposites, by the way. He went to UF. He's got hair down past his shoulders. Interesting guy. Lived out in Colorado for years. Lived in a van and traveled the country for years. Golf is like where we, the common ground that we share. It's a funny story. But we're walking through, and I'm kind of telling him, I'm like, hey, just make sure, don't do that, don't run, don't, all that. I'm kind of giving him the lowdown. And somehow I go through the security point, and when I turn around to, tell him the next thing, he has vanished like a ninja. I'm like, what? Where did he go? Well, what I didn't know is that whatever weird belt he had on set off the alarm, and they pulled him around this corner to wind him, and I couldn't see him around the corner. So I'm thinking, well, maybe he got ahead of me somehow. So I get up. I mean, and there's thousands of people coming in all at once, right at the crack of dawn, and this is on a Sunday at the Masters, Easter Sunday. They had basically a washout on Saturday, so we've got almost 36 holes of the leaders on Sunday. So we got like a BOGO Masters Day, right? We got to watch them in the morning and again in the afternoon. Brooks Koepka, John Rahm had this great duel. It was incredible. But we get lost. We get separated. They have these phone banks around at Augusta. Old school, dial tone phones. And you can call home. People call, check in, say hey to grandma and all that kind of stuff. And I see some of those phone banks. I'm like, maybe he is smart enough to call my mom and let me check. So I call the house. She's like, thank God. I just talked to your brother. He just called. He says he's going to the 16th green. Go meet him there. I'm like, okay, fine.
Wow.
So like an hour and a half later, we meet up down there, and we end up having this just magical day together. It was an incredible experience. Never will forget it. But it started off in an interesting way, right? Made for a good story.
That's outstanding.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a house that was being held for a Bank of America vice president, and they backed out at the last minute.
Wow.
And our friend who was running an event there said, "You want this house? It's going to go unused."
Yes.
It comes with a car and driver.
Wow.
And so we go to this huge house. This is pre Airbnb
Yeah.
too, so it's kind of creepy being in someone else's house. And my friend Jeff Schmidt was working for Creed at the time. And so that morning at dawn, the next day, the Creed tour bus comes up to the
Get
house to
outta
pick
here.
him up to go on the road.
No way.
I was like, "Hey, Scott, how
Oh
are
my
you guys?"
gosh.
It
That's
was
incredible.
That's the short version. That was a wonderful, wonderful weekend. All right, well, before we run out of time today, we got to talk time travel. If you could go anywhere, where would you go?
This is probably a kind of a boring answer for some, but I'd probably go back in time, 60, 65 years ago, and I would just kind of go hang out with my grandparents. I'd love to just see what they were like when they were in their late 20s, early 30s. I'd love to watch my grandfather play golf when he was young and didn't have back problems. I'd love to go watch my other grandfather when he was a high school teacher and speaking. I would love to watch him teach a class. I think that would be so fascinating. I teach at Florida State, and I just think that would be absolutely incredible. I'd love to see what my, parents were like when they were kids, running around the house, and grandma's trying to chase them up, and just I've heard so many amazing stories from all of my grandparents over the years, and I just think it would be pretty neat to just kind of sit and watch some of that. I think that would be pretty cool. See how true some of those stories were.
Wow, that's a powerful answer.
Yeah.
All the images that just popped into my head of my grandparents. We get these lasting images.
Yeah.
My grandmother and I fishing with a cane pole.
Yep.
Or my grandfather running a furniture store in Dothan, Alabama. And I do have memories of terrorizing his customers running around the furniture store. But seeing him back in the day, Coast Guard, serving our country during World War II.
Yeah.
My other grandfather serving in the Pacific, seeing them as young men.
Oh, yeah.
And my
Wouldn't that
grandmothers
be
as young
fascinating?
women. My grandmother at the University of Alabama.
Yeah.
She was supposed to be a big hellraiser. Go Nana. She was an Alpha Gam. And fun story, she lived with Bear Bryant's wife in the Alpha Gam house.
See, how cool would that be to just be a fly on the wall and see what that world was like?
I've got old Christmas cards from Paul and Mary Harmon Bryant. Just like, Mary and JD, y'all would love it up here in Kentucky, because he went up there to coach, and then they lost track when he became super famous. But
wow,
great stuff.
I tell you a quick fast one that's got a little bit of technology in it that's kind of related to that. You'll appreciate this. So we're sitting here today, literally, watching the radar, seeing if this hurricane's going to form and come knock on our door. The last time one of these storms came up and did this same route was Hurricane Michael in 2018.
Yep.
My dad's dad, grandfather, he passed away the day that storm hit. The eye of the storm was passing over Mariana, and he passes away 30 miles to the east in Greensboro, Florida. So I have a lot of very vivid memories around that whole just disaster and what it was like in the immediate aftermath. And so I always think about him every time one of these storms pops up. So he's on my mind this week. But I went back a couple years ago, and for some reason I needed to, I was trying to visualize something about my grandmother's house there in Greensboro. And so I put it into Google Maps. And when it comes up, there's my grandfather in the front yard walking around. Right, yeah, I had this goosebump experience. I call it as the ghost in Google Maps. So I'm actually working on a column about this. And I still, to this day, I can go back, and when I get to thinking about him, I'll just kind of go and pull that up in the Google archives, and I can see him just standing there in his front yard, tending to the flower beds like he liked to do, right? And it's just like this moment in time that's kind of frozen there, right? And it's like, I'd give anything in the world to just be sitting on that porch watching him do that. And I kind of get to go back and do it. It's just this weird, funky thing. And I'm like, what are the odds that, Google happened to be coming through, which they don't make it to Greensboro, Florida very often, by the way.
That was their one.
So like that they happened to come through
pass.
that day, and there he was standing in the front yard,
I did the same thing with my grandparents' house in Dothan.
Yeah.
They had some farmland in front of the house, and it's actually houses now. So
Really?
I had the opposite experience. It was like goosebumps
Wow.
the bad way.
Oh,
like,
man.
like what'd you do? That's where I rode my horses.
Oh,
What'd you
my
do?
gosh. Yeah. Crazy.
Anywho. Well, Jay, that was an awesome episode of the
Yeah.
show. I can't thank you enough for being here. Pick up a copy of Here is Tallahassee at Hearth and Soul or online. Contact Jay Revell, Chief Storyteller of Revell Media, for any storytelling needs for your business. And thank you for listening to the Biz and Tech Podcast. My name is Blake Dowling, CEO of Aegis Biz Tech, and we will see you next month for another show. Thank you to Josh and Level Up Media for a rock-solid production. And that's it. See you next time. Thank you very much.